So begin today the Gemara, 2 lines from the bottom of Daf Chafei Amud Beis, where it says Omar Mar. So this goes back to what the Gemara brought before. Omar Mar is Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said before, a halacha l'Moshe miSinai, that if you have monies that were dedicated for the carbon of a Nazir, and then it turns out that it does not have to be used for whatever reason, the Naziris was nullified or the person died. So even though, what happens in those karbanas? Really, in those funds, there are mixed in 3 types of karbanas: chatas, and oila, and asham. But now, you keep that money in the Beis HaMikdash as a donation, and a carbon oila is going to be brought from it. Even though usually, what's the halacha with a chatas that's left over, that can't be brought as a carbon? It has to be left to die, or if it's money, it has to be disposed of in Yam HaMelach. But there's a specific halacha l'Moshe miSinai that applies to ma'os stumin. That's what it's referred to as. In other words, unspecified funds. That type of money, when there's a chata, and it's the halacha l'Moshe miSinai, as we'll see later, is specifically when there's a chatas inside of it, then it becomes all in a dava for the Beis HaMikdash and has to be brought as an oila. So that's what the Gemara is going to focus on now. Okay, like I said yesterday, over here, these few blat we're learning here is a little bit of kachim Gemara. It's like learning almost like zvachim or something. So Rabbi Yochanan said before, halacha hi b'Nazir. We have a halacha by Nazir that the ma'is stumin, unspecified funds that has a chatas in it, what happens? So it remains as all as a donation and a carbon oil is brought from it. The Gemara, is this only by Nazir? V'su leka, you don't find this idea by any other types of karbanis? A similar halacha? But v'hatanya, I'll bring you a braisa, another example, where the same halacha applies. So the Braisa says, V'shar chayove kinin, the rest of the people. I'm not sure what the rest is referring to, but it's referring to people that have to bring kinin. What are kinin? Kinin are the nests, birds that have to be brought together, a chatas and a oila. There are different cases which have to bring a chatas and oila. Over here, the example that the Rishonim say we're talking about is a mitzayra. A mitzayra, when he's concluded with his tzaras, he brings kinin, 2 birds. Okay, but then this is actually called a carbon of oila v'yored, meaning that if a person is rich, then he brings animals. If he's poor, then he brings birds. So v'shar chayave kinin shebetayra, these people that are obligated to bring these kinin, these birds that it says in the Torah, so she'efrishu mois l'kineyan, they designated money for this nest, for these birds to be brought for the carbon, and it was unspecified. This is mois stumin that's not specified. But what happens now? Now he wants to actually buy with this money the karbanos that he has to bring, so he can go and buy the birds now. But the Braisa continues to say, "Ratza lahavi behen chatas beheme yavi." What happens if now he wants to take these funds and not buy from it birds? Originally, he specified the funds for what? For birds. But now what happened? He got richer. So if he got richer, now he wants to buy from it chatas beheme, so he can bring chatas beheme. In other words, he can use all of the funds for chatas behema, even though originally it was designated to buy 2 birds, and he's going to buy a chatas and a oila from this fund, but now he wants to use all of the funds. It's not enough money to buy from the entire funds to buy both animals. It's much more expensive animals. He's going to buy for the funds for both birds, he's going to buy 1 chatas. That'll have additional money that he has now that'll buy the carbon oila. Or oilas behema yavi. If he wants now, he can take these funds and use it just for a oila. The point of here is because originally when he dedicated these funds, it was not specified. So if he gets richer, now he wants to use all the funds only for a chata. So all the funds only for a ayla, he can't. It was not specified before.
Before he was rich, what kabbalas was he?
Chatas and ayla. Also chatas and ayla, correct.
Now he has also been chatas.
True, but the point it's trying to say over here is that originally when he was going to bring it for the birds, he would bring it chatas and ayla from these funds. Now he's going to use the entire funds, either just for a chatas or just for an ayla, and he's going to bring other additional money for the other carbon. So it's saying that because it was unspecified funds, he can use it either all for chatas or all for an ayla. Okay, now the next din is the main din that is relevant over here for the question that the Gemara is asking. Mace, this person that dedicated these monies, this mois stumin, unspecified funds, and it includes in it chatas and ayla, he passed away. V'hayloi mois stumin, he has these unspecified funds. Yiplul in a dava. So now what happens? These unspecified funds that have in it also funds for a chatas, becomes a nedava, becomes a donation for the Beis Hamikdash, which is brought as a carbon oila. So the Gemara's question is, right over here you see that this halacha of unspecified funds that includes chatas in it, that if it's not going to be used for a chatas, what do we do with it? It just turns into a carbon oila. It's not only by a nazir, it's over here in this case, which is talking about a carbon of a mitzayra. Okay, so just one detail, the Mefarshim add over here, when it says over here, Mo'i Stumin, there are two different scenarios of Mo'i Stumin. There's Mo'i Stumin where a person says, I'm dedicating all these monies for my obligation that I have to bring, not obligation necessarily, that's not necessarily the right word. We're going to see soon in the Gemara, very, very specific what word the person uses. How do you define exactly Mo'i Stumin? The person says, I'm going to dedicate all these monies for my tzaras. That's for sure Mo'i Stumin. And the money is so unspecified that, like the ratio of this Braisa said, you could now decide to use all the monies for a chatas or all the monies for an oila. But then afterwards, the Braisa actually sort of starts again. It says, V'hoyu loy Mo'i Stumin. V'hoyu loy Mo'i Stumin means when the person said, I'm bringing it for the karbanis. I'm bringing it for the karbanis of my tzaras. When a person adds that word karbanos, now what it says in the ratio of the Braisa doesn't apply anymore. He can't now take all of these funds and use it either only for an oila or only for a chatas. Because you clearly said for the karbanos, which includes both oila and chatas. And on that, the Braisa is saying that it becomes an adava. It all becomes a carbon oila. If the person died, then he can't use it anymore. Why am I saying this? Because if you don't add this detail, then the Gemara's question doesn't make any sense. The Reisha of the Braisa said that you could take all the money and use it for an oila. So what's the question? Whether when the person dies, you're going to take this money and say that it becomes an adava for an oila. It already said in the Reisha that you can use all this money for an oila. Meaning that even though this person dedicated it for the karbanas that are needed for the oila and the chatas, but because he never specified it, so therefore it really could all be an oila. So therefore, the Mefarshim over here say that the Reish is talking about a case where it's completely unspecified. So over there, you can take all that money and it could all use it for oila. So it's as if there's no chatas here at all. Now you have a case where the person said karbanais mitzayre, karbanais naziris. It's still unspecified, but it has a chatas inside there because you said karbanais. It's a hat. And then on that it says that if the person died, you can bring the monies is dedicated for an oila. And that's the Gemara's question. So why did we say before that this is only halacha l'moshe misinai for Nazir? So what answers? Tana Nazir, v'chayav v'kinin d'domulei. You're right, Take, that we have to learn that this halacha l'moshe misinai refers to the leftovers of the karbanis of a Nazir, the money, the unspecified money of a Nazir. And similar, chayav v'kinin, this example that we're saying over here, and the domulei, which is similar. And basically, this is a general halacha l'moshe misinai to any similar kind of a case where you have unspecified monies and there's a chatas inside of it. If it's not going to be used, it becomes a donation as an oila. Now it says here the domulei. It's dafka a carbon of like naziris, and what's similar to this. Now what does this come to exclude? Rabbi Yochanan specifically spoke about a nazir because he wanted us to understand that it's only unspecified monies that have a chatas in it that's like a nazir. But lafuke maha, that comes to exclude a different case, which would seem to be the same, but it's not. The following case, the Tanya, we learned in the Braisa, mi shay mechuyev chatas. A person was obligated to bring a carbon chatas. Whatever reason, so he had carbon chatas, he has an obligation. Now besides that, v'oma, this person said, Harei alai oila. I take upon myself to bring a carbon oila. So now he has two obligations. A chatas is a chiyuv, and then he has now another chiyuv because of a donation that he decided he's going to bring an oila. Now v'hifrish mois. So now he designated money for both of these karbanis, and v'amar, and he said, Harei elu l'chayvasi. This money here is for my chayva that I have to bring. What does chayva include in it? Saratza lahavi ben chatas beheime lo yavi. If he wants to use this money only, completely, just for chatas beheime, he can't use this money just for chatas beheime. Oilas beheime lo yavi. If he wants to use the money for oilas beheime alone, he also can't use it just for oilas beheime alone. When he says that he's bringing it harei el l'chayvasi, it goes on these two separate chayvas that he had over here. There's a chatas and there's an oila. So he can't bring just for each one separately. It may, sorry, we missed one word there. Mace. Now, in this case, if this person passed away, and he has the monies for these two korbanos that he dedicated, right, for the chatos and for the yayla. But in what way were these monies designated? Stumin, without specifying what part of the money is for what. In this case, the leftover monies will not become a dedication to the Beis HaMikdash, or what you not bring it for Ayla. Over here, the monies goes to the Yam HaMelach. You have to dispose of the money. What's the difference? Why is this case different than the previous case? Previous cases by a Nazir, by a Mitzayder, we're speaking about one obligation of Naziris or Mitzayder that obligates you to bring two korbanos. Chatas and Oila for your Naziris. Chatas and Oila for your Tzaras. Over here, these two korbanos that he has to bring, the Chatas and the Oila, really have nothing to do with each other. Chatas is because he did an Averis, Chayav Chatas. Oila is he accepted upon himself an obligation to bring an Oila. There's no connection between them. In such a case, when you have Moi Stumin that includes two korbanos, true, it's Stumin. So it's not unspecified, but nevertheless, there's two different parts of korbanos that are included in here that are not related b'chlal. So in such a case, the chatas remains distinct, so to speak. It's a separate chatas, and therefore, if you're not using it for the carbon chatas, the person died, the money has to be disposed of. So this is the case that it came to exclude. That's why he said Dafke Nazir and the Damule, what's similar to Nazir.
Didn't he say he's bringing a chatas and oil?
He has to bring a chatas and an ayla, but he died. The person died. Over here, mace, if the person died, and now you have these moy stumin, and he can't bring this karbanis, yelchul yam melach.
The beginning, the ratio of the prices. Why lo yovin?
Okay, I'll have to come back to that. Okay. Sagt the Gemara weiter. Amar Rav Ashi. So Rav Ashi said, "Ha the amrit mufurashin loy." Going back to what we learned before, benegeh to mufurashin, meaning there's money that you did dedicate and you specified the chatas and the oila and the shlomim. So when you do specify, so then loy. Then when it's left over money, then the chatas does not turn into an adav. It doesn't all become an oila. That's what we said before. This whole halacha l'moshe Messina only applies to ma'is stumin, not ma'is mufurashin. Once it's mufurashin, then there's a different halacha. So now, how do we define mifurashin? What means that you specified? So there's going to be a few different ways how to learn this. Now, loy teimid amar, don't think that this is only if the person said, Elu lechatasi, this money here is for my chatas, ve'elu lo'ilasi, this money here is for my eila, ve'elu l'shlami, and this third money here is for my shlami. It's not only then, that's mamish completely specified, three separate things. Ella, rather, even if all the monies are mixed together. Afila Amar, Elu Lechatasi, Uloi Lasi, Ulishlami. He has one pile of money and he says, here, I'm dedicating this pile of money. In it is going to be a chatas and a oila and a shlamim, mufurashin hein. That's also already considered to be specified, and therefore, when there's leftovers of this, if the person died, it will not become a donation for the Beis HaMikdash as a carbon oila. Okay, but there's a difference, obviously, between these two cases, though. In the first case, when it's mufurashin, it's not mixed. You have the money of the chata separately, the money of the oila separately, and the money of the ashlamim separately. So you treat each one of these monies differently. Chatos has to be disposed of in the yam melach if it's not used. The oila, if it's leftovers, it's brought as a carbon oila. Shlamim is brought as a shlamim. But when you have all three mixed together, it's mufurashin. You spelled out that in this money it has all three, but it is mixed together. So if it's mixed together and not as leftovers, the person died, you can't bring it as a carbon. What are you going to have to do? You're going to have to dispose all of it in the Yam HaMelach because it has a chatas mixed inside. So you can't bring any of it as a carbon. Okay, but this is all mefurashin and not stumin. So it does not become designated as an oila afterwards. Another opinion is that this goes even a step further. Amar Rav Ashi said, Loi teima ada Amar. Don't say that it's considered to be specified. If he spelled out that this pile of money, even one pile of money, that there's a chatas, oila, and shlamim mixed in over here, even if he just uses the term chayvasi, my obligation, it's like he spelled out clearly that there's a chatas mixed inside over here. What's the pshat in this? So the Rishonim explained the term chayvasi refers more to a chatas than an oila and a shlamim, because an oila and a shlamim is a kind of carbon that you can donate as a donation, not only for an obligation. Chatas is the only kind of a carbon, the chatas and a asham is a kind of carbon that you cannot dedicate as a donation. It's only brought when there's an obligation, when there's an aveda person that is chayav to bring a chatas. So using the term chayvasi means that there's a chatas inside here, so you spelled out that there's chatas money inside here, so now it's not stumin anymore. It's not, the chatas is not mixed in a way that it was never spelled out. Chayvasi spells it out already. Now returning to the case of mo'i stumin, the halacha l'moishim misina, that when there's money that was not specified, that if there's leftovers, it becomes all a oila. So Rava said about this, mo'i stumin yipul in a when we said that when there's unspecified funds, and it's leftover, so now it all becomes an adava for the Beis HaMikdash. Im nafla dmei chatas mi beineyan, if the money of the chatas fell out from between them, so most Rishonim learned, the pshat over here is that the person went, he had this one pile of money that was unspecified, but then he took out a certain percent, and he said, this percent of money is going to be the chatas. So you just removed the chatas from here. So now this money, the halacha of this money that only has a oila and a shlomim mixed inside of it, is like money that's specified, and then you're going to bring the oila for a oila and the shlomim for a shlomim. It's not going to all become a oila when it's leftovers, when the person died. And the reason is, and here you see the halacha Rav is saying, this whole halacha l'moshe misina, that when there's leftover monies, and it's not specified what it is, that it becomes a oila, as a donation to the Beis HaMikdash, that's only if there's a chatas mixed inside. That chatas that you had to bring for a kapara, and it's left over, and it's mixed inside, it's unspecified, that has to be brought as an oila. But if there's no chatas mixed inside, it's just the oila and shlomim that are mixed together, you took out the chatas money, so then that leftover monies is not going to all be brought as an oila. The oila is a oila, and the shlomim is a shlomim. Tanya kavasei de Rava. Second. Yeah, okay. Tanya kavasei de Rava. We learned in the Braisa, like this halacha that Rava said. When a person was dedicating his money for the Naziris that he has to bring. So he said, Eilu l'chatasi. Here, this money, he specifies clearly, this is going to be for my carbon chatas I have to bring. Vashar, and then he has other monies that he designates, and he says, L'shar Nazirusi, for the other karbanas of my Naziris, which is an oila and a shlamim. So then, Demei chatos, so the money that he designated separately as a chatas, Yel Chaliyam HaMelech. Whenever money of chatas is left over and it's clear, it's specified, that money is disposed of, Yam HaMelech. Vashar, the other money which is mixed together, oila and a shlamim, Yavi chetze loila. Half of that money is you're going to use it to bring a carbon oila, and v'chetze l'shlamim, and half of it you're going to use to bring a carbon shlamim in it. Now, there's a difference though here. This money, as long as it's still mixed together, you have money that's mixed to oila and a shlamim. The halacha of mi'ila, there's a difference between oila and shlamim when it comes to the halacha of mi'ila. Mi'ila means when you misuse the money of the Beis HaMikdash. Oila, there's mi'ila, and the monies or the animal even before the carbon is brought as in the Beis HaMikdash. By shlamim, the me'ila of the shlamim only begins after zerikas adam on the mizbeach. After you spray the blood on the mizbeach, that's when the halacha of me'ila applies. So here you have this pile of money which includes in it for a oila and a shlamim. So is there a me'ila at this point or not? On one hand it's a oila, there should be me'ila at this point. On the other hand it's a shlamim, there's no me'ila at this point. So therefore the Braisa says the halacha regarding me'ila as well. Umayalin bikulam. If you're going to use all of the money, so then there's me'ila, because if you used all of it, for sure you used the oila as well. Or Taisus actually says here, it doesn't only mean all of it. If you used 51% of the money and higher, so then you used a certain percent that was, if half is oila, half is shlamim. So if you used more than 50%, you for sure used part of it that belonged to an oila. So there's me'ila right now. But ve'ein ma'ilin b'miktasan. If you use below 50%, or 50% and below, so then there's no me'ila, because then you used only shlamim money, and for shlamim there's no me'ila before the blood was spread in the mizbeach. Another example the Braisa brings, Eilu lo ilasi. When a person was dedicating his karbanis for nazirus, so he said, this pile of money here is for the oila. Vashar l'shar nazirusi. Then another pile of money, he says, is going to be for the chatos and the shlamim. So now you have the chatas and the shlamim that are mixed together in this money. The me'ayla. So now, if this person died, or if it's not going to be brought as a carbon, what happens? The money that he specified clearly is for an ayla, yaviyu ayla. So that has to be brought as an ayla now. Umaylim behem, like the halacha always is regarding an ayla, that even before it's brought, right now, there's already a halacha of me'ila that applies. V'hashar, now the rest of the monies that you have here, which are mixed in chatos and shlamim, what happens when you have mo'i stumin? This is unspecified monies that are mixed in a chatos and a shlamim. Yiplul in a dava. If it's leftovers now, the person died and it can't be brought for its carbon, so it becomes all a donation to the Beis HaMikdash. That's again. So here's where the halacha l'moshe misina does apply, because you have chatos mixed in. Now again, the same halacha, umayalin bekulan. If you use the majority of this money, so then there's me'ilah, because the chatos, there's me'ilah right away, just like an oila. But ve'im mayalin b'miksasan. If you use less of the money, if you use below 50%, so then that means that what you use could be just of the shlamim. And for the shlamim, there's no me'ilah at this point. Okay, one more halacha, the Gemara will clarify here, regarding this halacha l'Moshe Misinai, that moi stumin, if there's leftovers from this money and there's a chatas inside, it becomes all in a dove to the Beis HaMikdash as an oila. So Amar Avun Amarav loishanu ela mois. This halacha l'Moshe Misinai was only said regarding moi stumin, monies. But that's where the halacha applies. Avol beheme, but if you're talking about a person that was makdish a beheme and it's stumin, doesn't it's like it's specified. What does it mean here when it says behema? Behema doesn't mean the behemoths that can be actually brought for the naziris. By the naziris, there's 3 karbanos you have to bring. All right, a chatas, a oila, and a shlamim. And there's very specific animals that have to be brought. A shlamim, I believe, is a ayal. Chatas is in the keva, kivsa, and the oila is a zachar. So if a person dedicates the specific animals that has to be brought for these 3 karbanis, obviously these karbanis that have been dedicated are mufurash, and it's very clear which animals for what. What the Gemara is saying over here is, let's say you dedicate a par, a bull. A bull is an animal that's not brought, not for any of these karbanis of the Nazir. Yeah, so now what do you have to do with this par that was dedicated as a Nazir? You're going to have to wait until it gets a mum. You're going to have to let it graze and get a mum, and then you're going to have to redeem it and use the money to buy the proper animals that you need for your karban nazir. So let's say a person dedicates a big bull for all the karbanis that he needs for his naziris, and it's unspecified. So you may think, just like there's halacha l'Moshe Misinai regarding monies, unspecified monies that have a chatas inside of it. If the person dies, now what happens? All those unspecified monies become a donation as an oila. Maybe it should be the same thing if you dedicated a behemah that has now in it mixed in, it's unspecified and it has monies that you're going to eventually use for a chatas. So Rav said, no, it's not this way. Because the halacha l'Moshe Misinai was only for monies. Here, the behemah is not money. You're going to have to wait until it gets a mum, and then you'll be able to sell it, and then you'll get money for this. It's not money. It takes a long time until you're going to get the money for it. So therefore, the halacha l'Moshe Misinai does not apply.
Does he have to wait until he gets a mum? Or
Yeah.
Can he sell it just?
Well, so if what happened over here is that this person died, and it can't be brought anymore as a carbon, so then what you're going to have to do is, because it's mixed into it a chatos, so then it has to be left to die. Now, Rav Nachman said, this halacha that we said over here, that when it's a behemoth, it's different than money, and it's like it's been specified, and halacha l'Moshe Misinai does not apply here. Loishanu ela tmima. This is only if the behemoth that this person was makdish was a behemoth that's whole, without any blemish. So then, to get money from this behemoth for your karbanis, you have to wait. You have to wait until it gets a mum. Then you could redeem this behemoth, and then you use the money for a carbon. Aval balas mum. If you dedicated an animal that already has a blemish, harehi kistuma, then it does have the same halacha like monies. Why? Because it already has a blemish. You could immediately sell it and get money for it. You don't have to wait. So therefore, it's equivalent to money. You could sell it right away. Now, avol nasche loy. If a person, instead of taking money or an animal and that he dedicates for the karbanis, nasche, he takes what's it called?
Ingot of
A piece of silver. Takes a big piece of silver, and he dedicates this for I'm going to take my karbanis from this loy. So over here, it does not fall into the category of mois tumen. Why not? It's not called mois. It's not money. A nasche, we can't treat like money. Why can't we treat it like money? So the pshat over here that the Rishonim says is interesting actually, because people use the value of this nasche is known. Just like today, there's a market price of exactly the weight of silver. It's a market price that's known, and therefore people actually use it almost as a currency. At least in those times, people use this nasche itself as a currency. It's not money. But people don't even necessarily exchange it for money. People just use the nascha itself to buy things. So therefore, halacha l'Moshe Misinai was said only regarding money. If you are dedicating a nascha, a piece of silver, so a piece of silver is not something that people get money for it so easily. Or people don't usually exchange it for money. So therefore, the nascha is not money. If it's not money, the halacha l'Moshe Misinai does not apply.
But the value could go up and down?
It could, yeah, just like, yeah, chayre, yeah. Rav Nachman by Yitzchak Amar, Rav Nachman by Yitzchak argues and says, no, afila nascha. This nascha, if you dedicate a nascha, it does have the halacha like money, because people use it almost like a currency. People do buy things with this nascha. It has the same halacha as money, and therefore the halacha l'Moshe Misinai that if it was stumin and there's a chatas mixed inside of it, will apply that it becomes a donation for the Beis HaMikdash. Aval, but he gives another example of a movable item that is not like money. Svar shal kairis. If you have a pile of beams of wood that you had for building project, whatever it is, and you have leftover beams of wood, that's not money. That's something that it'll take you time to find a buyer, to sell it, and get money for it. So a person took these beams of wood and he dedicated it for a carbon, and it's unspecified. That's not equivalent to money. It takes time to sell it and to get money for it. Amalei Rav Shimi Barashi. Just thinking if we should start over here. Or we'll stop over here. This continues here into the next Amud. Anyways, the next Amud is very few lines, so we'll keep it for it. It continues all the way to the next scene. Okay, we'll stop over here.